49ers versus Saints is up next. It's going to be a fun game. The 49ers were supposed to have joint practices versus Saints. Of course, that didn't happen. But what that means is we're going to see Brock Purdy and some of the starters. We're going to go through which starters are potentially going to play in this game for both the 49ers and the Saints, and which players need to step up and have a good showing in this second preseason game to ensure that they're going to make this roster. We're going to talk about all that and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Saints, 49ers, first home game for the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, it's preseason, but that doesn't mean excitement is not flowing through the fan base right now as the 49ers prepare for a matchup against the Saints. And we're going to get to see some starters. Kyle Shanahan took the KNBR and then later confirmed again in his press conference that the San Francisco 49ers were going to allow some of their starters to play in this game. And that should be as no surprise due to the fact that joint practices didn't happen. Now, of course, most of the time, Kyle Shanahan is still one of those guys willing to play those guys. But in this case, we're going to get to see Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was one that he actually mentioned would play in this game. Wouldn't confirm it all the way, but that is the belief that Brock Purdy is going to be out there. So we're going to get to see number 13 for the first time in 2024. And there will be some guys out there with him. There's no way that Kyle Shanahan is putting out his starting quarterback without putting out a pretty good offensive line. But we're going to go through all those guys and talk about who's going to play, plus who's going to play on defense, because Kyle Shanahan did say not all of the starters would play. So we're going to try to pinpoint which starters aren't going to be playing for a variety of reasons. Of course, we know why some of them aren't going to be playing. They haven't even showed up in Santa Clara or haven't been practicing at all. We'll touch on that for just a second, but we're going to keep this about the 49ers versus Saints, some of the matchups, and some of the cool stuff that's going to happen in this game because the Saints also have an offensive coordinator very familiar with the 49ers organization in Clint Kubiak. He was here last year. He was the passing game coordinator and was a help to Kyle Shanahan. So that's going to be a little bit of familiarity. And the Saints have a lot going on as well, a little bit of potential quarterback controversy. Some of their media pushing for Spencer Rattler to potentially be challenging Derek Carr, the local kid, went to Fresno State. So I'm not sure that that's really the case from some of the digging that I did, but maybe there's a little bit of a battle between Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener for the backup quarterback job. So they're going to have some interesting competitions as well, and maybe we're going to see a lot of their starters in this matchup as well. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. If you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From preseason NFL to college kicking off, Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor Pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, and get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. So there was the news, of course, about the San Francisco 49ers playing their starters, and from everything that I could find online, and it was hard. It was sifting through a lot of New Orleans Saints information, found that it appears that the Saints are going to play some of their starters as well. So we might see Derek Carr and some of the offensive players. Now, Alvin Kamara is not confirmed for this game. He's dealing with a little bit of a back issue at practice, which could mean that he's not going to play. So we might not get to see Alvin Kamara in this game, but we could see Derek Carr and others, including some pretty good talent on defense, which we'll go through. But let's kind of set the tone for who's going to play for the San Francisco 49ers in this game. Now, of course, we know that injuries are still an issue for the 49ers, even though several players have made their way back to football practice. So we know that Brandon Ayuk is not going to be playing in this game. We know that Trent Williams is not going to be playing in this game. Ayuk still hasn't agreed to a contract extension, and Trent Williams, though being fined $1.8 million so far, has not reported to training camp. He's still in the midst of a contract dispute as well. They won't be out there. Ricky Pearsall is dealing with a shoulder now. New report from Matt Mayoko said that if the 49ers were playing a game of significance tomorrow, Ricky Pearsall would play. But right now, Kyle Shanahan said in his presser he doesn't want Ricky to take any unnecessary contact and potentially re-injure his shoulder. So Pearsall's not playing in this game. I would say it's very unlikely he plays against the Raiders next Friday either, which means he will make his 49ers debut in front of fans Monday Night Football, September 9th against the New York Jets. That is not confirmed. That's not 100%. Just what I believe is going to end up happening. Of course, cornerback Isaac Yedem, potentially a week away still. We'll see what happens. It's been 2 weeks now since he rolled his ankle in walkthroughs. He's not going to play in this matchup. It would have been a return to play his old team, or it would have been an old matchup. That would have been fun. McCaffrey, he's not going to play. He's got the calf strain. Running back Elijah Mitchell could be coming back to practice next week after dealing with a hamstring strain. He's still not back. Running back Patrick Taylor, no new news on Patrick Taylor. Running back Isaac Guerrero, still not coming back and still on target potentially for a redshirt season. Fred Warner is a guy that's a little iffy. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. John Feliciano still dealing with knee irritation, not likely to play in this matchup. Spencer Burford still has a broken hand. He's had it heavily padded during practice, has engaged more in one-on-ones, on individual drills over the last week, but he's not quite there yet, but he should be a week or two away from potentially coming back. And then defensive lineman Sam Okawanu, who has yet to practice, but the 49ers continue to keep him. Hopefully Okawanu can come back here pretty soon. The fact that they haven't put him, they haven't cut him, reached some sort of injury designation with him, including IR, means they're hopeful that he's going to come back and potentially be able to make a difference on this football team. So let's go through the starters, especially for the San Francisco 49ers. First off, Brock Purdy is expected to play in this game, which is great news for the 49ers. And so Brock will probably play 1 to 2 series. My guess is probably 2 unless the first one goes for a touchdown. So I think if the 49ers march down the way they did in their preseason opener and march right down the field and score a touchdown, in that case, if Brock looks like he's got a rhythm going, I think Kyle Shanahan will pull him out and say, hey, that's enough. We don't need to see any more. Brock looks good. If for whatever reason they don't score, he doesn't feel the end result was enough for Brock as far as the looks that he wanted him to get, then I think we could see Brock Purdy for a second series, but I think that will be it. After that, that's when Josh Dobbs enters the game. Last week, we know Brandon Allen started the game, and that was predictable from the way Kyle Shanahan has handled some of the quarterback battles before. So this will be Josh Dobbs' time to come in, and he'll play against the twos. Last time he played against the threes, and he'll get a pretty good run. It should be at least through the first half, maybe a little bit into third quarter. We'll see. He's done that before, and then we'll see what he does in his time on the game. Then Brandon Allen will come in the game, and he will get an opportunity to play probably all the way until the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter. There's another drive after that. Maybe there's an opportunity for undrafted free agent Tanner Mordecai. But I think that the key is going to be making sure Josh Dobbs gets his reps and making sure that Brandon Allen gets his reps, because they're the ones competing for the backup quarterback job and potentially a decision to be made. The 49ers only decide to keep 2 quarterbacks on the active roster. So that's where a lot of the reps are going to go. Brock Purdy, potentially 2 series. Then after that, Josh Dobbs through the remainder of the first half, maybe a little bit into the third quarter. Then Brandon Allen after that. And then if there becomes an opportunity, we could see the debut of Tanner Mordecai, and he could get a little bit of maybe like 1 or 2 series towards the end of the game, likely to get 1. At running back, it's going to be Jordan Mason that starts, and he'll roll with this first team unit. It'll probably be the 1 or 2 series that Brock Purdy is in the game. After that, it's going to go to Cody Schrader, and it's going to go to the rest of those guys. They've got to evaluate Cody Schrader, Matt Breida. They've got some decisions to make, of course, about Schrader, because we know who the top three running backs in San Francisco are. It's Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell. But running back four is still a decision to be made. Cody Schrader, Patrick Taylor, who's been hurt, can decide there. They've brought in some guys, so they're going to take a deep dive at this. But Jordan Mason will be out there to start this game, and he'll have Kyle Juszczyk in front of him for the first time. Juszczyk sat out last week. I expect him to play with the first unit for those 1 or 2 series, and then he will come out, and it'll be Braden Willis's time, and it'll be Jake Tungis's time, and those guys will get the reps as the 49ers kind of move to more of a 12 personnel look, where they run one running back and 2 tight ends, and they use that second tight end as a fullback. So we'll see primarily 12 personnel and 11 personnel once we get Juice off the field. When Juice is out there, that's when you can see a lot more different looks. 21 personnel, 22 personnel. They'll do more of that, which is the norm for the 49ers offense. But once Juszczyk comes off, once a tight end starts playing fullback, that's when you see a lot more 12 personnel. Of course, when they want 3 wide receivers, it'll be 11. Now we're going to wide receiver, and this one I've seen other people saying they don't expect to see Deebo Samuel play. They think he's going to be a rest. I think Deebo's going to play 1 or 2 series with Brock Purdy. So I think we're going to get Deebo and Jawan Jennings. They'll be the X and the Z playing out there initially with the San Francisco 49ers starting offense. And so I think they're going to get a good look at these 2 guys as part of getting them in rhythm with Brock Purdy and this offense. So they're 2 of the starters I expect to play. Jawan Jennings, 100% expect to play. And I think it's likely we see Deebo. Deebo's been practicing. He's been an Ironman. I think they're going to give him a look, because I think next week we may not see any Deebo Samuel at all. So that's why I believe that we're going to go this route. And of course, it could change. I mean, next week they could play Deebo Samuel. And then George Kittle. I think George Kittle is going to play a little bit. I think George Kittle will get the first couple series. They'll roll with that first team as much as possible. And so we should see, the all-pro that is George Kittle out there. The people's tight end will be out there making blocks, making plays for the first 2 series, and then he will be out of the game for the 49ers, and they'll start turning to Eric Saubert, and they'll turn to what is a very important battle at tight end. Braden Willis, Jake Tungus, Cameron Latu, all those guys are in the mix. Right now, Braden Willis is way ahead of everybody else, but if you're talking about tight end 4, Jake Tungus, versatility to play tight end and fullback, and then Cameron Latu with the receiving upside, those guys right there are in a real battle. So they need a lot of reps in this football game. That's why I don't think Kittle plays very long. I actually don't think Saubert plays that long. I think they're pretty decided on those 2 guys. Of course, Kittle, of course, but Saubert as well. They're going to let these other guys work it out at practice. At the game and then at practice. So I think it's going to be fun. Now let's go through the offensive line. The starting lineup is going to look a little bit different this week than it did last week, but it will look familiar. Number 1, Colton McKivitz is going to start at right tackle. At right guard, it's going to be Dominic Puni again, his second straight start. Puni's done really well, but there's really no push for anyone to take his spot. You've got nobody behind him right now. Spencer Burford's dealing with a broken hand. He's getting better, but he's still dealing with a broken hand. And then John Feliciano has knee irritation, so he's not playing either. So this is Dominic Puni's gig right now. We'll see what happens next week. Could there be a change going into the Raider game? Could Spencer Burford be healthy? Could John Feliciano's knee finally ease up and him go out there and compete? Potentially that can happen. I don't know how much they need to figure out how good John Feliciano is. I think they already know. So I don't think that's a big deal for him. It might be nice to get out there and maybe knock a little rust off, but 49ers are going to roll with Dominic Puni. I expect Jake Brendel to make his preseason debut and get a couple of series in front of Brock Purdy. I think they want the first team line protecting Brock Purdy as much as possible. Of course, it can't be fully first team. We're not going to have Trent Williams. We'll get into that in a second. But I think Jake Brendel will take the early snaps, especially because Aaron Banks is not going to be playing in this game dealing with the broken pinky. He had surgery on it. It's going to keep him out until potentially week 1. But Kyle Shanahan said they're hopeful he'll be available for week 1 versus the Jets, which means this is going to get turned over to others. Now, Coach Chris Foerster said this week that Ben Barch is a better guard than Nick Zakelj. Here's the issue, though. Ben Barch has been dealing with knee irritation as well. So Feliciano would normally be the guy you slide in right now. He would slide into left guard. You wouldn't think a second about it. He would just go in and handle it. He's done it before. He did it last year, didn't miss a beat. Knee irritation. Ben Barch has been the better guard than Nick Zakel. Knee irritation. There's a likelihood if Ben Barch isn't capable of playing, and this is kind of where I think it's going to trend and go, Nick Zakel is going to start at left guard for the San Francisco 49ers in this game. So we know his best position is center, but with Jake Brendel starting, Nick Zakel is going to get a good look at guard. This is a huge opportunity for Nick Zakel. If Nick Zakel can prove that he can play guard as well as he played center last week, he has a real shot of making this roster. He will fully overtake Ben Barch in every avenue. Better guard, better center, which means better person for the 49ers to have on their roster. So this is huge for Nick Zakel, and Brock Purdy said in his interview that he's rooting for Nick Zakel. Of course, really good friends. So Zakel has an opportunity here. Whenever a door is open because of injury, it's time for you to step in and make a play. Zakel got first team reps last week at center, and now he's going to get potentially first team reps at guard. So we'll see. If Ben Barch ends up playing, they could flip that to give Barch an opportunity to prove that he could make this team. Because I think Chris Foerster's trying to decide who's going to make this team. He's got a lot of decisions on the interior offensive line, and it keeps getting muddied up by some of these injuries. But it's giving players opportunities. So I expect to see Nick Zakel play left guard. And then once Jake Brendel comes out, I expect him to play center. And so we're going to see Nick Zakel at guard and center in this game. They're going to give him a really good look before they go to others, including Drake Nugent at center. And then, of course, at guard, continuing to work guys in. They've got to figure something out here. So, yeah, it's going to be fun for that interior offensive line. And I expect Nick Zakel to get a lot of reps. And then we're going to see Jalen Moore. Last week, Jalen Moore got sick, was unable to play in that game versus Tennessee. Kyle Shanahan talked about he's very, very confident with Jalen Moore. Jalen Moore, since last season in training camp, has gotten better and better. This year, really good. All the work against Leonard Floyd, all the work against Nick Bosa. That means he's ready and capable to go against a very good New Orleans defense. I mean, New Orleans is going to put some guys out there. Anytime that you have defensive linemen that can put pressure on the way that a guy like Cameron Jordan can do, they're going to be a pretty good team to watch. So they're going to have guys out there that can play. And we're going to see some fun matchups on the outside, too. Paulson Adebo, Marshawn Lattimore are going to be going out there and working against Debo and Jawan Jennings. And, of course, we'll see the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, out there as well, which could be fun. And we'll see. Maybe he won't play. I don't know for sure. I tried to find as much information as I could. And I think that the Saints want to get a good look against the 49ers, especially their offense against the 49ers defense. I think they're looking to improve with a new offensive system and new scheme. But 49ers are going to have a pretty good offensive line. And then, of course, we'll see the rotation. We'll start seeing guys like Chris Hubbard coming in and Brandon Parker. And what was interesting is we kept wondering why we were getting Chris Hubbard playing left tackle when he primarily plays right tackle. And Coach Chris Foerster said they're playing Parker and they're playing Chris Hubbard on the opposite side that they would normally play, because he wants them playing on their uncomfortable side so they can get more comfortable in case they have to be a swing tackle. Going to be a swing tackle, you have to play both sides. So that's kind of what Chris Foerster's working there and why they're playing there. So it's also going to be a key time in this game for Jacob Kingston. Jacob Kingston had a very good game last week pass blocking. I thought his run blocking needs to get better. He was getting bodied a little bit, pulling not at a high level, and we know that that's something that Coach Chris Foerster talked about Dominic Pooney too. When you get these tackles that move into guard, pulling changes a little bit. You're asked to do it more. The technique's a little bit different. And so they're both learning. And I think Jacob Kingston needs to get better at it. And Coach Chris Foerster said he needs to get, more, I guess, better at what he's doing, but more consistent as what he's doing. So he's going to be somebody that's really fun to watch for the 49ers. Now let's talk about the 49ers defense and who we're going to see out there. I think we're going to see Leonard Floyd. I think we're going to see him for the first couple of series. They'll get him out there and get him some work. He's a Iron Man, a bionic man. He'll get out there and get it. Now, I tend to believe that Nick Bosa is not going to play. I put an outside chance on him playing. I would say it's about 20% that Nick Bosa plays. But the likelihood is we won't see Nick Bosa for the preseason. So I think it might be Leonard Floyd and Etor Gross Matos that kick this game off at defensive end. If Nick Bosa's out there, I'll be very excited to see him play for those 1 or 2 series. But I kind of think he's not going to. That's just my own belief in why Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, some of the starters, not all of them. And I think Nick Bosa is one of those guys that won't. But it'll still be fun watching Floyd and Gross Matos and just seeing what we've been able to see at training camp when it comes to Floyd. The guy is the consummate professional. Then when you're talking about interior defensive line, I think we're going to get to see that interior tandem of Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave. Now, Hargrave's another guy that's more 50-50, but I think they're going to do it. Malik Collins and Hargrave getting some chemistry playing together, but getting a couple series under their belt, I think will be fun. And I think it's going to be fun for all the fans to see the pressure that these two guys can put on. You talk about lateral quickness and the ability to put pressure on offensive guards to move side to side. It's on display with these two guys. Pretty good hand technique, good placement, good power. This is going to be a good combination for the 49ers. But I think one thing that'll be fun to see is how they stop the New Orleans Saints run game. If there's going to be one person that understands the 49ers' weaknesses on defense, it's going to be Clint Kubiak. And we know they don't game plan a whole lot, but having some things that they could work together. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle and Kubiak haven't discussed things they want to work on so that way they can kind of work through this preseason game. If you're not doing joint practices where you can work on all those things, get some of it done in the game. Of course, no game planning. Don't want to give any trade secrets away. But those two guys know each other so well, they can help each other's defenses and offenses out a little bit with some key matchups and kind of working together. So that'll be something interesting. I expect Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave to play in this game. And then we'll get to see Jordan Elliott for the first time. And you're in for a treat. I'm hoping that we're going to see the same explosiveness that we saw at training camp. You guys will start getting those last week Kalia Davis vibes from Jordan Elliott. That's what he does. The quickness, the speed to get upfield. He's a massive man, and he moves people. Plus, I want to see him hold up against the run. But yeah, Jordan Elliott's a lot of fun. This defensive line group, it's a lot different than last year. I know we're missing Eric Armstead, but I'm telling you, this one's going to be a lot of fun, especially when we get to Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens. They'll get more of a run. Givens will play more than he did last week. And then the 49ers will get into the young guys. So I know I've seen people talking about they want to see more Evan Anderson. They want to see more Shaquille Brown. I think you're going to have to wait probably until the second half to see some of those guys. We'll see maybe a little bit at the end of the second quarter as they work those guys in. Starters, a couple series, potentially Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens playing a little bit more. But with the 49ers rotation, you'll probably see Evan Anderson, Shaquille Brown late first quarter, probably more closely into the second quarters when we'll see them and we can see what they can do. Now, I don't expect to see Fred Warner. I don't think he's going to play. He's been dealing with the foot. So I think the 49ers won't play Fred. I think what we're going to see is for a second straight week, Curtis Robinson starting at Mike linebacker. I think that's where they'll go. I do think we'll see the season debut of Devondre Campbell. I think Campbell will play 2 series. And then the question mark is, who's going to play Will linebacker? DFF is back. He's been practicing, of course. And so now he could be that guy. They could go with the young guy, D. Winters. I don't know. I think that because DFF's coming back from injury, they're probably going to want to look at him. But I think they want to allow D. Winters the chance. So I'm going to stick to this. It could be wrong. I'm just making it clear. But I think D. Winters is going to roll with Curtis Robinson and Devondre Campbell. And that's going to be your starting linebacker group early on. I expect DFF to come in at some point. He's also going to play some Mike, which is part of the reason I believe this could change up a little bit. And DFF could actually start at Sam and then eventually move to Mike when they put in D. Winters at Sam. But we'll see. I still want to see D. Winters at Sam linebacker, but it could be the time we see Devondre Campbell for the first time, which is great news for the 49ers. When you're talking about cornerbacks, I think we will see Mooney Ward. And not 100%, but I think we're going to see Mooney. I think we're going to see him for 2 series. I think we'll see Mooney. I think we'll see Demo, and I think we'll see Bernardo Green. I think those will be the guys. I wish it was Isaac Yedem so everyone could see Yedem on the outside with Ward, with Lenore at nickel. We'll see if they play any of Lenore at nickel with Bernardo Green on the outside or what they do there. I think the next up would be Rock Yassin. So 49ers potentially going to have one of their better units at cornerback in this game. Could be a lot of fun, and we'll get to see. We'll get to see. I think Darrell Luter Jr. is going to get a good spin in this game, which is great. Rock Yassin still trying to lock down a roster spot. Sam Womack improved a lot last week. So we got some guys right here that are going to compete. No Ambry Thomas means 49ers still have some decisions to make at cornerback. And then for safeties, I think it's going to stay status quo. George Odom, Jair Brown, they'll play the first series or two with the rest of the starters, and then they will go out of the game. Last week, both played really good. Then after that, we get to see Malik Mustafa and Taylor Hawkins. And it's a lot of fun to see these guys. Jalen Mahoney. And they also brought in guys too. So a guy like Tracy Walker, we'll see what he ends up doing. Over 6 years in the league, God of a lot of ability. So let's talk about a few guys here that need to have a big showing. They need to go out there and prove that they are a very good football player to make this football team. They're getting close to being on the bubble, and so they need to make something happen. I think first off, Cameron Latu. We talked about him a little bit earlier. I don't think he did enough last week. He had a couple catches, made a few blocks that were pretty good, but I think there's inconsistencies right now with Cameron Latu's game. So he's going to have to continue to work on it. He's somebody that needs a big showing. Womack needs to build on what he did last week. So Womack had a good performance. Can he show consistency and build on that? I think it's important. Danny Gray is going to play for the first time in the preseason. Last year, he got hurt week 2 of the preseason opening kickoff. But we need to see Danny Gray within this offense as a wide receiver. The dynamic speed, it's fantastic to watch. Can he be a playmaker? And then, will the 49ers get a little bit different when it comes to kick return? Danny Gray has been a part of kick return. Jacob Cowing's been a part of it. We saw Cody Schrader. But changing up some of the lineups, I know it's not going to be the starting lineup that we're going to see opening day for kick return. They're not going to show that. But Danny Gray being involved in this and that electric speed could be something cool to watch. Ronnie Bell, last week was so up and down. If he has another up and down preseason game, he might start sliding right out of potentially making this football team. Special teams hasn't been there for him. He hasn't done a good job there. And he's inconsistent as a wide receiver. The last week, ball going through his hands, hit him in the face. Not a great look for Ronnie Bell. So Bell and Danny Gray, they've got a lot to prove in this game. And so does rookie Jacob Cowing, who is now healthy. And Kyle Shanahan said is going to get a lot of looks in this football game. So these are 3 young guys I want to see play a lot. And hopefully we're going to get more from them. We know what Trent Taylor is. We know what Chris Conley is. And I'm excited to see them play. But I'm more excited to see these 3 young guys go out there and compete and battle at wide receiver. Of course, no Ricky Pearsall, but we talked about that earlier. And then Jacob Kingston, I mentioned him earlier. He needs to have a great showing if he's going to make this roster. It was a good showing last week. Can he show more consistency and an improvement when it comes to the run blocking? Him and Dominic Pooney need to improve in run blocking. If they do, well, that's going to go a long ways potentially to help them make this football team. Now, new faces that we're going to get to watch at wide receiver. We've already talked about some of the young guys, but what about Robbie Anderson? He's going to get some run at X receiver. And I think the 49ers are going to take a good look at him. The guy that's had a 1,000-yard season in his career. And so far, he's been pretty good in the locker room, for my understanding. So we'll get to see what Robbie Anderson can do in this matchup. Tracy Walker, again, let's see if he can push. There's always a chance that Talanoa Hufanga, even though we got great news on him, won't start the season with the 49ers active roster and potentially starts on the PUP list. If that happens, it leaves a 4th safety spot potentially open, and a guy like Tracy Walker might be able to get in there. The veteran leadership, a guy that played a lot of snaps in the NFL, a good special teams player, would make sense taking a guy like Tracy Walker over a guy like Taylor Hawkins. Well, he's going to have to go prove it. He looked good last week. Now he's been in the defense a little bit longer. Curious to see what he looks like in this matchup. And then we have a couple running backs. We saw nothing from Keyshawn Vaughn last week. He didn't play at all. We'll see if the 49ers give him a chance to run the football a little bit. But Matt Breida, the Cheetah, didn't really have a lot of holes or a lot of space to be able to run. And so we'll see. Maybe he'll get another opportunity. They'll rotate him and Cody Schrader a little bit. Maybe the offensive line will just block better. Because the offensive line, second team, of course, because we have so many starters out, the second team was really the third team and so on. They were not good in run blocking. They didn't get a lot of movement up front. And so that's going to be huge. And, of course, for New Orleans, we're going to get to see early on, hopefully, we're going to get to see the quarterback, Derek Carr. I talked about not being able to see Alvin Kamara, but we'll see Jamal Williams, and we'll get to see what he can do. Also, one thing that I know the Saints are really watching right now is their right tackle, Trevor Penning. There's a lot of concern about how good he really is and if he can hold up. That's going to be a fun matchup when he goes against Leonard Floyd, Etor Gross-Matos, and that 20% chance that Nick Bosa plays. Maybe that would be fun. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Watch that. He's got a lot of fire. This year so far, I haven't heard anything about him doing some extracurriculars, but Trevor Penning is an interesting guy, and that's going to be a fun matchup for the San Francisco 49ers. So that's going to be good. And also their rookie, Talise Fuaga, is playing left tackle. So we'll get a good look at the Oregon State product and how he handles those edge guys. So that'll be a lot of fun to see those guys. When it comes to wide receiver, does it get any more fun than Chris Olave? I think Olave is going to produce some interesting troubles for the 49ers. And let's see how this secondary holds up because they've got Olave, they've got Rashid Shaheed, who is fast. I mean, you're talking real fast. They add speed on top of that with a guy like Bub Means, who's trying to make this football team. So it's good roster overall. It's going to be a fun battle between two good football teams, and the 49ers are going to be playing a lot of their starters. So I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a fun one, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Let me know what you guys think. Who's going to win this football game? I know it doesn't matter, but it's always fun. And who do you think is going to be the best performer before the game happens? Leave that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe. Please give it a 5-star rating. It's available on all audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers.